Oh, we're live. The three chicks have finally made it
Hi,
back.
everybody.
Well, I don't think we didn't make our last episode because we have had some stuff going on. And that's what we're here to tell you about. Oh, we're live. We'll just wait for the echo to die down. That always happens. So, I don't know. I mean, I can speak from my perspective in Jersey Channel Islands, basically the UK. We have not been hearing on the news what's been going on with you guys on your parts of the world, which makes me very angry, but I'm not going to get too political on this show. But here we are. So I would like you to share, like maybe we'll start with Nora, what's been going on in New York and in your life, and then we'll ask Jenny what's been happening in Canada.
I know it is crazy. And in New York, I just want to say we haven't really heard about the Canadian fires. Strange, you know, I used to watch the BBC News because they actually cover everything, but I guess that's not the case. But so we had I'm trying to think, was it the hurricane that took me out first, or I think there was a rainstorm before that. We've been having significant amounts of rain in the Northeast that basically saturated the ground. So I lost my studio and my basement with the first storm. And then I cleaned it all up to lose it for Hurricane Ida. And I just want to say, I wasn't that greatly affected. Like, stuff is stuff. But in the city, in New York City, that was unprecedented, their rainfall. And there were people who, lost lives. There was in Queens, which is the city, the water was so powerful that it actually ran through the concrete, and there were people that in their basement apartments that unfortunately were drowned. So there was nothing serious on as serious on Long Island, but the water was significant, and it hasn't happened for about 10 years. I think that was the last time they said it happened. I remember
so this is just from rainfall, like over a lot of days.
Over a lot of days. And I think the ground was saturated. And, there was significant damage to our beach where everybody sees my sunrise. I'm assuming if you guys follow me, you always see my sunrise post and everything. But our beach was completely taken out. So the cement, the bulkhead was completely taken out. The stairs were taken out. But it was crazy significant. And
I'm just so glad. I'm just so glad that you're right. Like, I'm quite emotional because I've been very, very worried about both of you. And, this is serious stuff. I mean, this is not just like you could have died or lost family members. And I mean,
right.
It's,
and if you doubt climate change.
Well, I mean, I guess because it's a city, it's so built up, there's nowhere for the water to go, right? So that's the problem. So that's why a lot of days rain, it can't just run into soil and grass. So it instead saturates the concrete.
You didn't even see the pictures. Like, I'm shocked that because the pictures from the New York City subways were pretty obnoxious. Like, they were pretty crazy. It was just shooting in to the subways.
It wasn't like onto like when people were traveling.
Yeah, they were underground and the water was literally pouring into the trains. They had to stop all the trains. Like, that's how crazy it was. It just is. Yeah, it's nuts. I should have covered it.
Well, listen, what about your gym? Is your gym okay now? Can you
My gym is fine. So I had to replace all my floors, and I got in like the scrubbers, and I bought this really great hard scrubbing floor machine and then replaced all my floors, which I'm grateful because now everything's like brand new, so I just like kind of wiped everything down, and it was nowhere near. Like, I was more scared for Jenny with the fires, Jen. So how did that go? Like, explain to us.
Like, what a paradox, hey? You've got all this rain and we were just praying for rain.
Oh my God, fire, flood, famine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my perspective going through this is that, just like you said, if you don't climate change, I mean, Mother Nature is screaming at us right now, you guys. Mother Nature is screaming at us. And I really, truly believe in the energy, the collective energy of the world. And I think that it's no coincidence that we're dealing with these huge events. My family was evacuated for 5 weeks from our house. I'll paint the picture a little bit. We live on a mountain beside a lake. So the lake runs like this, and to the north of us, it's 30 minutes is a city. To the south of us, 40 minutes is a city. But to the east of us, we've got a lake. And to the west of us, we've got hundreds and hundreds of miles of forest. And this fire started in the middle of the forest. They say it's man-made, so probably somebody on a quad or something. We've had the most insane drought. I don't know the conversion for the temperature, but our temperature got up to 50 degrees, which I think is somewhere around like 110 or 120, with no rain for multiple months in a row. So everything was just crispy and dry. And this fire started, and I was in a fire 5 years ago with my family that evacuated us for 5 weeks as well. 90,000 people were evacuated from their homes for 5 weeks 5 years ago. So I was watching this fire thinking, I need to pack a bag. I've been through this before. I need to pack a bag. It's getting closer every day. And we're right on the edge of the mountain. So watching it come from the forest, I knew it was eventually going to come to the water. And I got my kids to get bags ready. I got my husband to get a bag ready. I procrastinated because I was like, I know logically I have to do this, but I'm not emotionally ready to go through this again. So, we just kept living our life. I packed my filing cabinet. I packed my picture box, like all my sentimental stuff. I told my kids to grab sentimental things. That's the one thing that we missed in the first evacuation. And on the very last day, I packed my clothes and everything. And sure enough, as soon as I finished packing, we got an order from the municipality that everybody had to leave. And we took our time with it. We knew the fire was 20 some odd kilometers away. We got evacuated, and the next day it was 11 kilometers away. The next day 4, and the next day 2, and so on and so forth. So
how does it work, Jenny? Where do they put you all?
Where I live now in British Columbia, there is an emergency support service that did set us up with hotels. So for that 5 weeks, we spent the majority of the time, myself, my husband, my 16-year-old son, my 11-year-old daughter, and our 160-pound Great Dane in a hotel room. In one hotel room.
Wow.
We do have house insurance as well that covers mass evacuation. So after the first 4 days, we had a friend offer us a place to live or to stay. They had an empty basement suite. We had to drive 14 hours to get there. It was really far, but it was better than taking advantage of the emergency support system when we didn't need to. We have home insurance. We had a place to go. We wanted to make sure to save that for somebody who needed it. My husband had to go to work anyway, and he works 14 hours away, so we went there. During that 5 weeks, there were 2 nights where, because we live in this valley that's, like this with a lake in the middle, the wind typically picks up in the evening. So, that was really terrifying. There were a couple of nights there where, my entire community, we just sat there on our phones. Is anybody else listening to the police scanner right now? Is anybody else hearing this? This doesn't sound good. I think we're going to lose our homes tonight. And at one point, sometimes we're not thinking rationally when we're going through something like this. And there was someone in our community who made a post saying, you guys, this is heavy. Our houses are gone. And he was wrong. Thank goodness that he was wrong, but it was really scary. My husband and kids were asleep, and I was sitting on the bathroom floor in this hotel room because I didn't want to wake anybody up. And I read this message saying, you guys, our homes are gone. And I crawled through the hotel room floor because I didn't want to wake up my kids and I didn't want to scare them. And I just reached over and I woke my husband up, and I was like, come in the bathroom with me. I think our house burned down. And we just sat there watching, and we found these apps that we could listen to the police scanners. So we were listening to the scanner and we could hear them. They were in our neighborhood. And I live, you guys, I live right next to the forest, next to the forest. I'm the very last house in the entire neighborhood And I was like, if any of these homes are going to go, it's going to be ours. And that was really terrifying. It turned out that they built a really good fire break, and our house did not burn that night. And then about 10 days later, the very similar scenario happened all over again. The winds really picked up. They were 70 kilometers an hour. That's like 40, 50 miles an hour. And that's really, really windy. People were posting videos of the big white caps on the lake. People from my neighborhood were staying across the lake. They found places because they wanted to see. So they found places. So people are on Facebook posting pictures and videos and at night, of course, you can see the fire more, right? It's dark, so the fire's red. They posted the most terrifying photos of our neighborhood. And miraculously, I live in a community with 4 neighborhoods along a long stretch of very rural areas. I'm kind of the second one. The third one lost quite a number of homes, and the fourth one lost almost all of their homes. So that second night, 78 people and 78 families in my community lost everything. And, I consider myself very fortunate to survive 2 wildfires, but that's really traumatic. And what we're going to be talking about today with overcoming obstacles, like now that we're through it and I'm back in my home and we're done most of the cleanup, I can look back and see what I did in that time that was helpful and what I did in that time that was not helpful at all with, just coping and getting through it. And I'm sure you can experience the same, Nora. Like, that must have been terrifying. And there's so much going on right now in this world that is terrifying. And not all of us are coping well with it, but we all can. We all can. I mean, we all have the power to control our own thoughts. We can't control the circumstances. We can't control COVID. We can't control drought. We can't control fires. We can't control floods. We can't, control any of our circumstances, but we can definitely control our perspective. And because I've been through this twice now, I can see where I've grown and how I did handle the second evacuation and fire a lot better. But I can also see areas over the last 5 weeks where I could have improved as well.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm so moved. And my mind's going a million miles an hour because I'm thinking, okay, firstly, I'm thinking the families that all lost their homes, what happens to them now? Well,
the majority of them have home insurance. So,
okay.
One of my really good friends, she's amazing. She's a former client. She's a CrossFitter. I took her daughter yesterday for a pedicure. It was her birthday. So her and I and the 2 girls, we all went for pedicures. And, she's such a strong woman. And so I know she'll be okay. But I know other people who lost their homes, and they, it's all about our perspective, you guys. Like, that is a terrible, terrible situation to be in. I wouldn't wish that upon anyone. My girlfriend, Camille, who lost her home, she's found a rental. She's already lined up a builder. She's got good house insurance. It's terrible. It's so terrible. She's lost everything. But she said to me, Jenny, I didn't think that this was going to happen. When I was evacuated, I didn't grab any of my sentimental things because there was no way in hell this fire was going to get me. There was no way in hell. In fact, the path that the fire was leading on, everyone thought my subdivision was going to be taken. Everyone thought my subdivision was going to go. That very first night, it was here. It was at our back door. And then after the fire, there's a creek that goes right beside our subdivision, and it was coming down the mountain right along the path of the creek. So that's right next door to us. Everybody thought my subdivision was going to go. And then there's another mountain over here next to the creek, and it actually went around the mountain and it got those other subdivisions, and nobody expected that to happen. Right. You can't predict where a fire is going to go. It's a wildfire. It's wild, right?
Fire and rain, can't predict them. Have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah. And like I said, I really think Mother Nature is fucking angry at us. Like, she's like, pay attention. And if you don't,
and wasn't it so ironic? Like that Friday night, I was at the Friday night that the flood happened, I was at James Taylor, and the only song I wanted to see him sing was Fire and Rain. And I remember my girlfriend turned to me and she's like, Nora, like, we have to get out of here. It's like 10:30 at night. I'm like, please, I just want to see Fire and Rain. Meanwhile, I get home at like 1 o'clock in the morning because we had to stay for that song. And I'm woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and all I can think is I'm getting out my shop vacs and my pumps and everything is like, Jenny and Nora have like single-handedly covered Fire and Rain. Like,
yes.
What are the chances? That is so crazy.
Well, look, the learnings. This is what the good meat and bones is. You've survived, thank God. And like already, Jenny, you've said, because you had experienced this before, this time you took sentimental items with you, which you didn't last time. So that's a learning, right? That's like an up leveling. Yeah. What are some of the other things that you've noticed that you did better in this situation this time?
I'm going to address the first most significant thing is that in our first evacuation, and guys, this is so bloody ironic. Like, we were evacuated for 34 days the first time. We were evacuated for 34 days the second time.
No, that's crazy. Like the exact same number, a random number as well.
So the first time around, they did a graduated reentry. So it was just our particular subdivision that was entered in on the 34th day. This time around, we were actually able to come home on the 33rd day, but it was in the evening. And it was just, like it ended up being out of town. It ended up being the 34th day. So anyone who's listening who was in either one of those evacuations saying like, are you right about those numbers? For me, yes, I am right about those numbers. So the first thing that I think is the most significant is that during the first evacuation, I coped a lot with alcohol, a lot. There in those 34 days, I would say at least half of them I was drinking.
And no one would blame you.
I was deep in my self-development and fitness journey at that time too. That, I was definitely conscious of my health and everything surrounding it, but I still coped with alcohol quite often in that first evacuation. This second evacuation, there were 4 days, and I know because I was very conscious of them. There were 4 days that I drank, and all 4 of those days I drank to excess. It was still coping. And yes, that's a huge improvement, but my highest self does not cope with alcohol, period. I know that. I know it deep in my soul. I know it in my intuition. I know it in my gut. And because of that, I decided to do Sober September. My birthday is next weekend, and this will only be my 3rd birthday in my entire adult life that I have been sober on my birthday. And the other 2, I was pregnant. So this is my first sober.
That's a quick way to do it, yeah.
And I'm sticking to my guns. I mean, I've got my in-laws coming from America next week, and my father-in-law's like, "Are you sure you're not gonna have a Crown and Coke with your mother-in-law? Like, that's the thing that you guys do." No, I went out and I bought de-alcoholized champagne, and I'll have some mimosas, some non-alcohol mimosas with her. And I'm sticking to my guns with this because I know that my highest self does not cope, celebrate, grieve, any of those things with alcohol. Because the first time around, what does alcohol mean? Alcohol means a hungover morning. And that is no good to anyone, especially when you're
like stinking thinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stinking thinking. Yeah, I like it.
The second most impactful thing that I've noticed, the first time around, I didn't have a solid morning ritual at all. I practiced gratitude, but it was kind of like at night before I went to bed, I thought about the things for the day that I was grateful for. And that was my version of gratitude, my version of a ritual per se. This past year, I really solidified my morning ritual. This past 5 years, I've been working on it, but this past year, I've really solidified it. And during this most recent evacuation, out of those 34 days, I probably only journaled about half a dozen. And it was so easy to make excuses because I was in a hotel room with my whole family for the majority of it. those half a dozen times that I did journal, they were during the time where we got to stay in our friend's basement suite. So my husband was off to work at 4:30 in the morning. My daughter was, sleeping until about 8 a.m. So those half a dozen times I did journal were during that time. My son was visiting his grandparents. He needed to get away, and it was so nice for him to be able to do that. So those half a dozen times that I did journal were when it was the most convenient. But I know that I have to do that morning ritual. I know that because we've been home now for a week. And during that week, this week that we've been home, my mindset has gotten way higher than it was during the time. Now, obviously, my circumstances dictated the majority of those feelings of being low and down. But the days that I did journal were the best days that I had. That's not a coincidence.
Right. Right.
We were talking for a few minutes before we went live today, and Nora, I love your perspective on like, go to that place in your mind, go to that positive place in your mind, because no matter your circumstances, you can get to that positive place in your mind. For me, journaling is the medium. There were lots of times as well where I was really mindful of gratitude in my head and trying to bring myself back into that positive mind space. And I think I was really successful in doing that. I know that because I didn't cope with alcohol. And I know that because even though my family ate at restaurants for 34 days in a row, I maintained my body composition. There were very few workouts in those 34 days, very few. And the majority of them were like yoga and stretching. But for me at this point in my life, that's what I need to be doing. But I still maintain my body composition. And, those 4 days that I lost it with alcohol were also like 4 days that I lost it with everything else.
Right.
Yeah.
When you journal, Jenny, at the beginning of the day, what do you journal? Do you journal what you're intending for that day, or how does it work for you?
It's essentially 3 parts for me. The first part is gratitude for things that have happened the day before. I believe that, that where your thoughts go is where your focus flows. So great gratitude for the day before. The second part is affirmations, things that I want to manifest into my life. Sometimes that's peace and harmony. Sometimes that's a physical thing. Like, I want to manifest that perfect tone of silver hair and not this yellow. It could be anything, but usually it's a whole page of gratitude, a whole page of affirmations. And then the third part is my intention. And sometimes my intention is things like strong, again, affirmations like, I am patient, I am compassionate, I am knowledgeable, I am a leader, I am an expert in my field, I am productive today, like specifically about the day. And then I either fill the whole page with that intention and alignment, or I fill half a page with an intention and alignment, and then the other half might be a journal prompt. And then I just kind of brain dump, like, the journal prompts can be anything. I have a coach that I like to use her journal prompts. So.
And how long would you spend doing that?
As long as possible, really. Sometimes I've got to do it in 10 minutes, right? Sometimes there's not a lot of time to do it, and I can do it in 10 minutes, but I prefer to take as long as possible. If I can, my morning ritual is journaling as well as stretching. And when I'm stretching, I'm trying to visualize. If I can't visualize, I'm saying mantras in my head right now. My big mantra is the Ho'oponopono forgiveness prayer. I don't know if any of you guys.
I saw you shared that on your page. I didn't know though that that's what.
Well,
you were talking.
Over the past decade, I have tried to do the 40-day forgiveness prayer on specific people in my life more times than I can count, and I cannot understand why I have so much resistance to it. I never get to the 40th day. And if you don't get to the 40th day, you got to start it over again. And that's the way it works.
So cool. I'm interested in this. How do we do that? How do we find out about it?
So the 40-day forgiveness prayer is you say the person's name. So let's say for whatever reason, I want to forgive one of you guys. So, Holly, I forgive you. Holly, I release you. Holly, please forgive me. Holly, please release me. I feel like I'm missing a part. I forgive you. I really see please forgive me. Maybe that's it. But this Ho'oponopono forgiveness prayer is much simpler. There's no specific number of days you have to do it for. It is just, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. It's just those 4 lines.
You do that for a specific person? Is that the idea?
You can, or you can just do it generally. You can do it for yourself. So what I have been doing recently since we got back home, what I've been doing, and I had a Reiki session last Thursday, and the Reiki practitioner reminded me of this prayer. I already knew about it. I watched there's a Netflix documentary that talks about it. And that's
wow, cool.
First introduced to it. And I take Netflix documentaries with a grain of salt, you guys, okay?
Yeah.
Like, remember, they're all biased. They're all paid for by somebody. So you cannot take, like, there's a couple like ones about nutrition that I thoroughly disagree with.
Totally agree.
There's some good ones on there too. So anyways, I was reintroduced to this last Thursday, and the Reiki practitioner who helped me clear my chakras on Thursday was like, Jenny, I really believe that you need to get back to your morning ritual, which again is journaling, stretching, and if I've got the time, also walking in the forest. Right now the forest is off limits, so we won't be able to do that for a minute, but I can walk around my neighborhood. And what she recommended was with each step, say a line of the prayer. So one step, I'm sorry. Next step, please forgive me. Next step, thank you. Next step, I love you. And it's like a mantra. So I've been doing that since Thursday, over and over and over and over again. And if you are someone who really struggles with meditation, mantras are a great way to get yourself out of yourself. I find I struggle, got a little bit of resistance to meditation, but saying that mantra, I do feel myself sort of expand and get outside of my body.
Wow, you are teaching us so much. Doesn't it show that your experience has really, and it happening for a second time, has brought something out of you to up level you? And I think one of the things that I wanted to talk about, because I'm going to ask Nora about her experiences now, but one of the things I really wanted to bring up today was that adversity is necessary to up level. Like, adversity is necessary for growth, and we avoid adversity at all counts because it's very uncomfortable and it can kill you from what you've just described. But if you face your worst fears and you survive, there's nothing left to scare you anymore, right?
I agree, and I think this is perfect. I think it's so important to share your struggle and how you overcame it. I mean, just look at us. We're in 2 different parts of North America, almost directly across from each other, and we experience 2 completely different scenarios. But there's stuff happening everywhere. There's earthquakes. There's more floods. There's more fires. There's all these different things happening, and it's easy to have a narrow view of it all, like, oh, I'm going through this. Well, there's only 5,000 people in my community who are going through this too, and there's how many people on the earth, this is, nobody else is going through this. Yes, we are. There are so many going through these hugely tragic events,
and they don't even have to be hugely tragic events, like, that's the other thing. So I think that part of this, I tell my clients all the time, never ask yourself, why is this happening to me? Always ask yourself, why is this happening for me? And it changes your perspective instantly. And the other thing, the thing that I heard this time when I was going through all this crap, and my son, by the way, got his first job on an oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico. So he was down there as Ida was hitting. And that was joyful. So he was choppered out to his oil rig. And it was so funny because we have this conversation, right? I'm like, Matthew, are you okay? He's like, Mom, everyone's calling in, like everybody was calling Transocean, calling their switchboard to check on their kids or whatever. And meanwhile, so I'm like, they had gone over safety with you. Like, I hope they went over safety. He's like, Mom, they put me in a helicopter simulator over a body of water and submerge it and have me buckle out.
Wow. So it's ultimate safety testing, right?
Like, wow, you're sort of more of a badass than me, because I would have quit.
That's like James Bond.
No, I mean, I probably wouldn't have, but like, you don't realize, and that was his thing. He's like, I got trained. He's like, I was scared at first, but then I figured I was being trained in how to live through a tragic event should it happen. Like, God forbid the chopper was shot down, or God forbid the oil rig is bombed, or whatever. Like, they're trained specifically for that. So he said
they do that to us with racehorses. How you learn how to fall off a racehorse,
Yeah,
because it's
like,
going to happen. So you have to know.
The chances of it happening are there. Therefore, you have to train like how to avoid it. So he was, he's like, I kept on thinking to myself as I'm in there, like, what, this isn't happening to me. This isn't happening to me. This is happening for me. This is happening for me. And I was like, well, I'm so proud of you.
Oh.
And then as I was like dealing with that kind of thing, and I walked out into my studio and saw the water like 2 feet high. I literally had a breakdown. And for that 1 second, I thought to myself, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? And that morning, I was not good that morning. Like, I was using brooms to shovel out water, and the force of the water had actually dented in my garage door where my studio is. That's how crazy it came down. And then I realized, people are losing a hell of a lot more than a studio. And then I actually went for a walk, because I have the same thing as Jenny. I cannot miss my morning walk. I mean, you guys see me every single day. I'm out there at 4:30 in the dark.
You're bringing us crazy the sun. That's what you're doing. You're bringing us the
like
sun.
A crazy lunatic. But so same thing. I start with gratitude, but really to connect with your heart, because in those times of adversity, people have to realize your instant survival mechanism is your brain, and that's what kicks in. And once your mind is leading your body and not your heart, you're in a bad place. You are in a bad place. It's almost like your subconscious, right? Because you have all these thoughts racing through your head. If those thoughts can kind of almost create this momentum, thoughts can become over time a habit. A habit becomes your personality. So I'm really kind of I'm really present to that thought. So I knew, like, I was like, all right, I have to get out of here. My place was still a mess. I had to cancel clients, but I was like, I have to walk. And on that walk, I was listening to a podcast, and I will never forget as long as I live. They said, when you feel helpless, become helpful.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Can I just say, when I was in a very bad time in my life, I asked my yoga teacher, who's an authentic guy, Manju, what do I do? And he was like, serve. That's exactly the same thing. So
it just gave me goosebumps when you said that. Yeah, it's the truth.
I that's so profound to me. I wasn't thinking about it while I was going through it, but you guys saw I kept sharing all along the way, and I kept sharing what I was going through. And I closed registration. I didn't take any new clients while I was evacuated, except for one day I was like, I think I'm going to open up a few more spots and, just work this one day when I know I'm in a hotel room and I know I've got my son's not
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, exactly. And I literally just took clients that one day, but I kept wanting to share and serve, and I had so much positive feedback and one bit of negative feedback. And that one person was like, are you using this fire to better your business? I was like, hey, I'm just sharing. And I know that sharing helps because I've had so many people tell me it helps. And I know that sharing helps me, and it might not help you, and that's okay, but I'm going to keep sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you do, Nora, then, when you were thinking, when you listened to that podcast and they said, be helpful when you feel helpless and serve? What did you do?
It's interesting because the second that you hear, get helpful, I turned my focus kind of outside myself, and I have a lot of stuff going on with my family. I have a lot of stuff. I actually have a client tomorrow going in for open heart surgery. Okay. So she's been working with me for a while. She discovered an aneurysm. Well, she's always had the aneurysm, but they discovered that it was getting larger and larger. And her son was getting married on Friday, and then she had scheduled this surgery for tomorrow. Tomorrow she's going into the hospital to have her chest cracked open. And when I think of, so I said to her, let's go for a walk this morning. We walked 26,000 steps. So that's about 9 miles almost, watching the sunrise at the beach. I walked her to
Beautiful.
Fire. We walked from Robert Moses all the way to Fire Island. And like, just to see her see, like, because the sky is pink, right? And then all of a sudden this orange, like, I don't even know what to call it. It just like right, and everyone that was walking on the beach, not that there's a lot of people at 5:45 or whatever time it was, god awful time. Um, Everybody stops. You just forget yourself in that moment. And she was like, wow, like I get it. And I was like,
It's
when you
bigger than
see
you.
that, it's bigger than you. It happens every day. Like everything is gonna be okay.
Right.
Like, I share it all the time that my one brother that died 2 years ago, I believe that that's where he lives. So that's why every day I have to catch the sunrise, because it's like my morning with JT, like I don't get to see him anymore, but I know that that's what connects me to him. And that's what gets me back into my heart, because I can get into my mind. I can say, I lost a brother, I have all this stuff going on, but I believe that I don't believe, so I used to believe, I used to tell my clients, welcome adversity. Adversity is great. Adversity teaches you. It's only in adversity that we grow. I'm going to stop saying that, because the more I've said it, the more adversity I've gotten. So now I need to learn it's okay to also be okay for a second.
Right.
And not constantly be fighting against that curve. So I
understand what you're saying, right? Yeah. Instead of feeling like you got to like punish yourself to grow, it's okay to just chill for a bit and I understand exactly what you're saying.
And I was saying to my client, I said, you've been really working your butt off for all this time. She just finished almost her second 12-week program with me. And she's an avid horseback rider, and she's just a crazy active person. So I said, hey, like, you're going to get to like actually lay down for a whole week. And she was like, I know, that's so exciting. And like, so that's the other side of it. Like, I've learned, I used to really believe that you're only growing when you're kind of being stretched. Right. And that doesn't have to be the case. Like, we can have those moments that we're just like, happy to be here, happy to be here without stuff. And I think
it's okay to be content.
Yeah, it's okay to be content. And it doesn't always have to be, I used to say, don't ever think of your fitness and wellness journey as a bunch of goals that you're hitting. But if you have hit a goal, it's okay to sit there for a while and say, wow, I hit a goal, like, and be proud of yourself. For a while, I was kind of turning that over, I think, a little bit too quickly.
I think that's about the balance between the masculine and the feminine energy, the yin and the yang. Like, it's very masculine energy to always be doing, whereas it's very feminine energy to just be.
I love it. Well, I feel bad because my sharing is nowhere near as huge as what you guys have been through. But what's cool is, like you said, it doesn't have to be huge to have a learning, right? So I wasn't even going to share this, but I'm going to share that because I'm just under 3 weeks out from my competition, Arnold's, which is my biggest competition I've ever done. It's my 6th competition. So 6 times I've been through this process. And each time I've cheated on my diet. And I did this yesterday, cheated on my diet. And it's hard for me to say that because, competing is my whole life. And, it's like my proudest thing that I do in my life, kind of thing. And to fail at it is like emotional for me. So, but important to share, I think, because so what do we learn from it, right? Because that's what we're focusing on here, that things outside of your control can happen, but also things inside of your control that can happen too, which is it was my own choice to do that, and I was in control of my abilities, and maybe I was in my mind space more than my heart space, which is why I did that. But interesting that each time I've done this, when I've competed, it's generally tended to be towards the end of the journey. And I have thought about this a lot. And I don't think it's just because I'm so hungry, although of course I am, because when I compete, like I'm on very little food and I have to train very hard. So my mindset has to be extremely strong to get up every day and manage. Now I run my own business and I have like 25 people's emotions to manage as well as my own. And I'm not complaining. I'm very grateful to have that opportunity, but it gets a little harder closer to the show. But what I was going to say is, come on, Holly, I've just lost it. Where was I?
It's always towards the end of your prep.
Yes. Yeah. I almost feel like it's kind of self-sabotaging, because when I think now, like I remember in 2018, I had the British finals, which was a big show for me in the UK. In fact, it was my second show, but it felt like my first, because my first show was just a little tiny one here on this island in 2017. There was just one other person in my class and I lost. It was the worst loss in my life. I'd never experienced loss before at something that I'd worked hard for. And I was such a sore loser, and they were actually filming a documentary at the time on me. And I'm so ashamed of it. In fact, I was so ashamed of that show, I didn't buy the photos. And wow. Which was the saddest time in my life. I was so ashamed of the way I looked. In my head was not how I looked. I didn't have the muscle that I wanted. And I regret that decision very much, because now I don't have photos from my first show. I have the draft copies with the watermark on them. So the second show, the British finals, was huge because it was in the UK. It was a proper show. The British finals means you have to qualify for it, which I had done in 2017. And the night before it, at the time, I used to would have a glass or two of dry white wine, because it really helps dry you out, because you've cut your water anyway and you need to dehydrate. But it also kind of helps chill you out, because honestly, you know, cortisol, which we naturally have when we're stressed, is very catabolic for muscles. So, It can make your muscle really disappear. So the more chilled you are, the better. So a lot of people will use a very dry white wine or a vodka to chill themselves out. Plus it helps dehydrate. Now I did that, and I was with friends that were also competing and just watching. And I had 1 glass, and then 2 glasses, and then I had 3 glasses. Now this is someone that was on eating hardly any food. I was in great shape. And so it's hitting me. And I messaged my coach and I was like, oh, I'm going to have another glass. And he was like, do not ruin everything that you've been working for this one night. You're going to be ruined. Why are you doing this? And I was like, okay, no problem. I'll go to bed now. It was about 9 or 9:30. I went to bed and I lay in bed and I was like, oh my God, I almost ruined this for myself. Because the show's tomorrow. If I had just kept on drinking, I would have just been a mess. And I'm like, every year since, although I don't always have the alcohol the night before, with my new coach, that's not something I do now. But it's like I'm kind of almost spoiling it for myself towards the end. Like as if I'm like, fuck it, you're gonna lose anyway. So come on, let's just eat this shit food. So I don't know. But
that happens to everybody. That happens to people at the end of their 12-week program. Like that is a universal thing. And that's so interesting to me. Like, what was your thought? So what was your thought yesterday? Like,
I had been told that I was allowed to have, because I do ketogenic. So once a week, it used to be that I could have a treat meal once a week, but that's not always the case, especially close to the show. So yesterday I was allowed to have, like a certain amount of carbs added to each meal. And I was so excited because I'm starving. And so I added my rice to my first meal for breakfast. And I had just brought back my crunchy peanut butter because I need to pack my cases in a couple of weeks and I'll be taking that with me. And now I have nothing in my house. My friends had kept it because I just don't want to risk ruining my diet. And the peanut butter had just come back like a couple of days ago. And I thought, I'm just going to have some peanut butter. It'll be okay because that is something I can have anyway. I guess that's what I thought. Then I had 4 tablespoons of that while I was doing work emails. And then I was like, shit, I went out, did usual stuff in the day. Like I told myself it would help me train legs. I made a lot of excuses. went out, trained legs, went and had a waxing appointment with a friend, told her about it, but I had a handle on it now. And then came home and was going to have my next amount of rice, but that turned into an entire bag of rice. And then, then I was like, I guess I was like, oh, well, fuck it now. I may as well just go with it. So
you were in the fucking bucket.
But no, it's really hard for me to say this because I feel like, you know, I'm doing a disservice to myself in a way because I'm so strong-minded. And I'm not just someone that thinks this is a joke or does this all the time, or, you know, I live like a monk. You know, the things in my life that I've turned down for competing, my sister's graduation, Christmases, birthdays, I'm completely devoted to my competing. So this is not a fire or a flood, but for me, it's kind of like that, because like Jenny values her home and family, you value your home and family, and I value my competing within that bracket.
Yeah,
because that's so important for me. So me doing this is almost like, I was walking today because obviously I had to do a lot of cardio today to try and undo the damage, but that will be difficult because 1 gram of carb holds 3 grams of water, and I woke up crazy thirsty because I had about 4,000 calories yesterday, and that is not anywhere near what I am normally on. And I was walking and I was thinking, what was I thinking? Oh my god, I'm losing my train of thought here. What was I just saying?
Because competition prep.
Yeah, I know. I think I just went off track when I was talking, but
you were talking about self-sabotaging and your thoughts toward the end, and how you value this more than really anything else in your life.
Yeah, how important, and
how you've given up everything.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. I was thinking, I was mad with myself as I was walking, and I was thinking, I'm really angry with myself for doing this, because now I have to tell my coach, and he'll just think that I don't care about this. And he couldn't be further from the truth. And then I was thinking, well, but I'm stuck with myself. Like, I am me. So I can't run away from myself. I have to fully accept and embrace that I did this. And then I have to salvage it and move on, and not continue to spiral downwards, and not give up everything. So I think a lot of my clients, I will be talking to them about this, go through things like this in their normal life. And then what often happens is they continue to sabotage and spiral till it becomes like a massive issue. So I'm glad that I've grown enough this year to catch it, so that at least when I woke up this morning, everything was back to normal. I was back to my usual eating. It's my day off training, but I have cardio, and everything normal, water, you know, my usual coffees and things that get me through the day. So it's like, okay, the good thing is I didn't continue to spiral. And I'm really, because I've up leveled mindset wise, I'm talking to you guys, which is a big thing, because I'm not big on vulnerability. I'm getting better at it. It's always easy to suggest other people be honest, isn't it, about their truths, but it's not so easy to do it when it's yours. And so just to even talk about it is huge for me. I'm proud that I'm sharing it. Not proud that I did it, but proud of what I've learned from it, because maybe this will mean that next time I won't need to make this same mistake. And obviously my diet for a competition is extreme and hard. So, but it's still relative to a normal person that's going through some kind of diet or trying to change their life. It doesn't have to be super extreme to be difficult if it's something different, if it's less food than what you normally have. Or
I think, but Hal, I think it also speaks to how hard you are on yourself, and how, you know, like you define it as a mistake, but maybe in the process of dealing with it this time, you can also look at what it actually does for you by the time you get to competition. Maybe it will turn itself around. Like my mom always says, and you guys know that I'm big on this, like, where is your pony in that pile of shit? There's got to be a pony in it somewhere, or you wouldn't continue to dig. You know, she's always like, because it's the same thing, right? Like my clients know, I know, I've had similar, I mean, so similar to you. And I know that feeling, and I'm not in competition, and it still drives me nuts when I just spiral. It's like, oh, I had peanut butter. I might as well have ice cream. I might as well put Hershey syrup on it. Hey, fuck it. Where are the Oreos? Like I might as well have that, because we're so hard on ourselves about that. But there's a reason that it keeps happening.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think the difficult thing for me is that I actually have a competition to be ready for. And if I do things like this, I could not be ready for it. And then I would have to scratch. And that would be terrible for me because it's the most important thing in my life. So I can't.
But in your truth, you know that even if you screw up once, really, I mean, you've done it before, right? So you kind of know where your boundary is. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's what I think. Like I tell my clients all the time, I can make up for cardio, whatever. I'm not going to a competition, obviously, but it's interesting that we repeat exactly that step that we know we're sort of safe, but sort of not safe.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with that.
I'm thinking from the perspective of a coach, of course, and I know that you and I, all three of us, we think the same with regards to why we self-sabotage. Behind resistance is always some sort of limiting belief. So without offending you in any way, shape, or form, Holly, I'm curious if you have considered if there might be a belief about your success. Like, is there something inside of you that believes that you will fail?
Yeah, 100%. I know I don't have the muscle. Yeah.
Well,
because I can see that I can see.
You know from competing though that you are only up against who you're up against. It's not necessarily a matter of volume of muscle, but who are you competing against when you get up there on that stage? And also what exactly the judges are looking for, because it is a little bit subjective. They all have the same sort of view, but each individual judge is going to have their particular look that they're looking for. And it might be similar to the other judges, but it is different. It's different.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I'm sure that there is definitely a sabotage there. Like you know,
we all
have. I mean, clearly every competition I've done a similar thing at a similar time close to the show, and if you do it close enough, you'll ruin all the work. It's because it's like a pregnancy. It's so long. It takes so long to get ready for a show. You have to sacrifice so many I mean, I'm getting ready all year, because even when I'm off season and I'm bulking, it's with a view to cutting down for this show. And everything I do is with laser focus to this one moment. And it's so easy to ruin that one moment by drinking too much alcohol the night before or eating too much food a few days before. Those are things that you can't salvage in time. So it's interesting that, I do think there's probably sabotage there and a lack of belief in my own success. Right. Definitely, because it's very hard for me to, I always believe other people can do things better. I even got my friend yesterday to cut a t-shirt up for me to wear at the expo, because I didn't think I could cut it right myself. So, and I became aware of it as she was doing it, and I was like, shit, I've done this my whole life, given other people stuff that's important for me to do for me, pay any amount of money, because I don't think I could do it well enough myself.
Right.
So yeah, maybe that's something that I could change. Well, it is. I could change it now. And I actually can, because I actually have a second t-shirt exactly the same, because it's my coach's brand. And I said to her, I'm going to cut the second one myself and choose which one to wear. So that's a change already.
I think that's awesome to so many people, because, we all have clients and followers who will self-sabotage in their journey. And again, I believe that the reason we self-sabotage is because we don't believe we're worthy of the success, and self-worth is such a huge issue for so many of us right now. And what I think is important for anyone listening who is relating to Holly to really take away from this is that she is not allowing that fuck it moment to turn into a whole fuck it week or a whole fuck it month, or allow her to end this prep and decide not to compete. Like, there's no way that would happen, right?
No.
Sometimes we have slip ups in our journey of, physical changes, but you have the power to not allow that to define you or define your results.
Yeah. Wow, this has been a heavy
blood, fire, and famine. You said it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness,
Wow,
I knew it was going to
cool.
be. I knew it was.
That's what we should have called it. Maybe somebody will write a song about it.
We can have sure. Blood, fire, and famine. Overcoming adversity.
When we eventually get together, maybe it'll be to do a live concert.
Oh, that would be so cool. I love singing. That would be so fun, But I think, I think we've shared. Have you guys got any other learnings that you wanted to share from your experiences? Because I think we've all shared. I mean, Nora's already said, when you feel helpless, get helpful, and how she did that. I have said Jenny's highlighted to me how we should be aware of why we self-sabotage. And I've learned to think about why, and maybe then next time it won't happen. And Jenny learned a few behaviors that she has done differently this time. And she doesn't want to use alcohol to mask her feelings. And she knows journaling really helps and there's no excuses. But have there been any other learnings from these?
You know what? I also heard this thing, which was so interesting to me. So this guy that I listened to all the time was talking about how he does these workshops and he helps these people with mindset, right? Mindset, as we all say all the time to our clients, mindset is the number one thing. You kind of have to believe that you are the part before you get to the part. And even you guys can see, even we all look the part, but sometimes we have those days that we don't really feel the part. But the point of being in a tribe, or the point of being part of this podcast and watching us and being part of our groups, and I know, again, we all have followers that follow all of us now. But this guy was talking about the collective conscious. And when people think that they can overcome that collective group and that collective belief, manifest with some magnetic charge to the universe so much greater than any one individual can. So the importance, again, of having these, women and men in our tribes and like really latching on and really forming those relationships. I know I have clients who follow Holly and have made friends with Holly's clients and Jenny's clients. Like, that is real cool shit, guys. And that's where, when you do have these moments, like we kind of pull each other out of the gutter, but that collective conscious is really something that we speak to as women, that we speak to all our clients about, and that really just turns the page, sort of, right? Because if you were hanging out with a bunch of people that didn't believe what you believe, Hal, then it would be kind of hard to get out of that.
Yeah. And I know a lot of mixed martial arts fighters and stuff that say you never win, but you either win or learn, rather than you either win or lose. You either win or learn. And so I find it hard to learn, because I find it hard to accept I'm not perfect all the time, like from the start. And of course that's crazy, but I'm just being honest. I see it in myself. So it's nice if you can get to a point where you can stand outside yourself and notice behaviors. I guess that means it's unraveling a little bit, which is great, because that's growth. And I think learnings are so valuable. Like, us sharing these learnings that we've had is really helpful to other people. And I'm so grateful for you sharing, like, just being able to talk with you guys, because also you've helped me learn from my experience in a way that I couldn't see myself. So it's really helpful. I think if you can learn from things, because what I wouldn't want is to, like, condone self-sabotage behaviors and things, because that's horrible to go through life just ruining things for yourself all the time. But it's really cool if you make mistakes in anything and learn from them to be able to do better next time. Like when we shared the Wayne Dyer video about walking down a different street and how she just kept going down the same street, falling in the same hole, but then next time, like, she got out a bit quicker, and then finally she just walked down a different street. That's progress. And I think that's what we're talking about. Like, Jenny's been evacuated from her home a second time, but this second time she took sentimental stuff with her. And Jenny, may I ask, do you feel any different coming back home this time?
Well, the last time that I went back home, we didn't stay. We went up with a U-Haul and we moved cities. And this time, it's been it's almost like grief, you know, coming home. So grateful that we have a home to come to, but you know, my basement smells like smoke. The smoke must have come in through the dryer vent. And knowing that friends have lost their homes, it's so different this time. I'm here, I'm kind of stuck in it. Whereas before I just left. That's that brain, that monkey brain, fight, flight, freeze. Yep. You know, I just left last time and I felt guilty for leaving. This time I'm here, and as a community, we're sort of helping each other. So yeah, I do feel a lot different. And one last thing that I wanted to add that I've also done differently that might help anyone who's going through anything tragic, because suffering is suffering, whether you're suffering because of turmoil with a relationship or you're suffering because you've had these insane tragic circumstances. Suffering is suffering. We can't compare it. And one thing that I have definitely found that I need to prioritize when I'm suffering is self-care. I pulled out all of the self-care tricks in my toolbox. I went for Reiki sessions. I spoke to metaphysical practitioners. I spoke to mediums. I spoke to shamanic healers. I took my daughter for spa days. I did massages. I did so many acts of self-care that I think really made this particular situation a lot easier to cope and deal with than the last time around. And even coming home, that I've also focused, this last 4 days have been so much self-care, because I knew that I came home and I was happy to come home, but then I realized I was like, oh my gosh, I'm still suffering because now I have this house to clean, and you know, there's so much, you know, bats took over while we were gone. There's bat poo.
I know. I was telling somebody that this morning. I'm like,
and
she had bats.
Toxic. Yeah, I went yesterday. I bought a machine, a high frequency machine that's supposed to not hurt them but get them out of the area.
Yeah, so just does the sound waves. I know.
Yeah, it wasn't cheap.
That's kind of crazy. Yeah.
And you know, for what it's worth, like, bats are considered rodents. They're not included in house insurance. So my house insurance can't help me with that because they're rodents. I mean, I tried to argue it like, well, they wouldn't have infested if I were home. So technically the evacuation that caused the bats, not the bats that caused the problem. And anyways, I digress. But again, if you're suffering right now, no matter what that looks like, self-care, you have to take care of yourself. And I was told by one of my coaches that it seems like I'm waiting for the time to prioritize my self-care. But if you focus on self-care, the time will manifest, because you're now in the energy of, I am important. I need to put myself first. I need to prioritize that time, so that time will expand. That time, you will find opportunities for that time if you take care of yourself first.
Well, I think it's important too, just for us to say, because what I've learned more than anything in this time is like suffering and getting stuck in that, you know, now I have to clean my studio, and now I have to buy this, and now I have to do that. Whenever you're suffering and whenever you're feeling anxious, you're really stuck in your head. Like, your brain has taken over. It is in survival mode. It is impossible to create and to be a creative being in survival mode, because you're fight or flight. So if you just take those 5 minutes to kind of, that's why people practice gratitude, because it's bringing it back into their heart center. It's bringing it back into, and self-care is going to do the same thing. But if you can just take those minutes to realize when you are suffering and when your brain's going a million miles a minute, just take it back, because it's not in control. Like your heart is in control. When you get grateful, that's why people say get grateful right away. You know, what's going to attach you back to the earth and back to the things that are important, whether it's your family, whether it's, you know, just having your home, whether it's just being here. The more you can detach from those external things that we've all grown to believe are so important. God forbid my cell phone should disappear. You know, you're really stuck in your head, and it's really easy to get stuck there. And I always tell my clients, like, bring it back to what's really, really important, however you do that.
Nor, how do you do it? How do you get back in your heart?
I have to go out on walks. Like yesterday, was it yesterday or the day before, I had a client cancellation, which normally gets me a little agitated, I have to say, especially last minute. But I now know I have to get out. And I went to this place, this old, I think I shared it on Friday on my story. I went to this old beaten down mansion and just kind of treated myself to like being out in nature. And the whole time I'm there, I'm like, you are not in yourself. You are not these things. You are not attached to these people. You are not attached to this thought. I try to kind of whoop it up in like a big dirt storm to kind of come back to who I am. And then I come back so fresh. Like, these thoughts don't matter. Like, it doesn't, because you get stuck in that, oh, my client canceled. That means that they don't take my time valuable. That means that maybe I'm not a great trainer. That means that maybe they're not serious about their thing. And then you just start going.
And you get so far away from the actual circumstance. You end up like Chinese whispers kind of thing, but in your head.
Yeah. Nature. And when trauma happens, it happens even faster. I mean, add fire or rain or famine to that, and you're on a recipe for disaster fast.
You are so right. So, okay, guys, as a summary, some of the tools we've shared is journaling, self-care, whatever that looks like pampering yourself, you know, nails, massage, reading, and time in nature and walking is what Nora would do. For myself, what would I say? I suppose, what would I do as a tool to stop me doing that? Why did I do it in the first place? Don't compete. No. I have.
No, you go out and do your cardio. I see you on the beach.
Liar. I do. I do. I guess. That's something I do. And I have.
Go to the water. That's always the answer.
You're right. I do. I love doing my cardio on the beach, and I have started reintroducing meditation. I haven't done it regularly, but because we have a lady that comes on to my clients once a month and takes us through a meditation, she's my friend as well, and she's a great teacher of it. And she did remind me how important it is and how little time it takes, because I'm so focused on my training. That's kind of my morning routine, and when I'm prepping, it's like I don't have tons of energy for everything. I've got to focus on one thing. But one cool thing that came out of the meditation was that when I sat down to do it on my little, I've got like a little prayer stool that a client gave to me. So it's like a little buffet on the floor. Now, I had an adductor injury, like, I don't know, last year. Just, it didn't affect me training, but this right leg wouldn't fall out. So something had happened to it. Well, I haven't meditated in so long, and I went to meditate 2 days ago, and my right leg fell right out into a cross legs, no problem.
Wow.
So I'm like, it's fixed. That's cool. Yeah. I didn't even know. I was messaging my friends, so it was, there was kind of nice to find out something about my physical body just from sitting down to address my mind.
Well, energy manifests physically. I found that too while I was evacuated. When I had a Reiki session, they asked if I had any physical pain, and I said yes, my hip. And through the Reiki session, at the end, they said, yes, your sacral chakra was blocked. That's in your hip area and your spine and womb area. And there's no coincidence there.
Gosh, isn't that interesting?
Yeah,
so we have shared. we've shared some useful tools. And personally, I want to say thank you, Jenny and Nora, for sharing your experiences. You have both been through a lot with your homes and with your families. I'm so grateful that you're okay, that your homes are still there, and your gym, and that your son is okay, Nora. And, you know, are you okay? Are you still there, Nora? I think you just paused for a minute.
Yeah, I paused and then you guys paused. I don't know.
Did you hear what I was saying?
Where I am, you guys.
We're just so, I know, let's finish by saying 3 things that we're super grateful for from these experiences. I'm going to go last because I can't think at the moment.
Go ahead, Nora.
Yeah. So put me on the spot, guys. I really am super grateful right now just to have my family like where they're supposed to be. Super grateful that I have really strong parents who really have taught us how to kind of get through adversity no matter what. I mean, my mom was my first spiritual teacher ever. She continues to be that for me. So super duper grateful for my mama, of course, but grateful for everyone else as well.
That's beautiful. What about you, Jen?
I'm grateful that whether or not my home was standing, that I had my family safe throughout that entire experience, and still today we're all safe and happy and healthy. I'm grateful for the opportunity to share my story through this medium. I love that we get together, and I know that this will be helpful for a lot of people. So I'm grateful that we have the opportunity and the courage to share. And I'm grateful that I can see how much I've grown as a human in the past 5 years. Being able to compare the 2 scenarios side by side gives me a lot of confidence to know that I've come so far, and it gives me a lot of hope for how far I still have to go. You know, you reach a goal and you just make new ones, and you grow as a human, and you just want to continue growing.
Yeah, I say that all the time. You never can plateau. There's just always another level. It's so, which is great.
True.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you, Jenny. So I would say, because my experience is a little different and sort of not as huge, but I'm so grateful that I didn't continue to spiral, and that I started afresh today with a nice new day, putting my health and my goals first, instead of yesterday when I didn't do that. And I'm so grateful that I was brave enough to share this, because I really wasn't. I said to Jenny at the beginning, this happened yesterday, but I'm not going to talk about it on this show right now. And but I decided that I would, because if we're being vulnerable, then it's not fair to just sit there observing and not take part. And thirdly, I'm super grateful for 3 Chicks Walk Into a Bar. I'm super grateful that we created this, and I've loved watching it grow over the episodes that we've had so far. Just from a mere concept where I was just going to interview Jenny or Nora, and then I was like, maybe the 3 of us, in fact, I think Nora said, oh, why don't the 3 of us come together like a clutch or something? And I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. And then, you know, we came up with a name, and
and guys, would it be so cool to like watch these over? I mean, sometimes I watch them over and I'm like, we've even grown from the beginning of this.
Yes,
it's crazy, right?
You do grow if you're bouncing off people that are growing.
Yeah,
you know, if you're rubbing shoulders with people that are growing, which we are, because we all invest in ourselves in up leveling in different areas of our life with coaching. We're all reading new information, you know. Oh guys, can I just tell you, I've started reading a book on my Kindle, which is brilliant. It's called Having the Confidence to Be Disliked. It's quite famous. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. Yeah, I'll share it, and maybe I'll share it in the comments section. It's really cool. It's like a philosophical kind of text. I think it's like a Japanese author. It's really, really cool. But things like that, you know, put seeds in your head, and then we are sharing them. And so that's, anyway, gosh, this has been a long episode.
I love
Hopefully it's been helpful.
Yes, I can't wait to see you all again in October. Thank you so much for everyone.
Thanks guys for tuning in.
Oh, Jenny, happy birthday next weekend. I've written it down.
Jen, what day is it exactly?
The 18th.
Oh, my daughter's the 16th.
Yeah,
80th.
yeah, Virgo power.
Yeah.
What star sign is that?
I'm a Virgo.
Oh, Virgo.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I've
So
literally
cool.
written this down in my calendar.
Very much a Virgo. And I wanted to share with you guys too, this might be helpful for anyone listening. I've decided to invest in myself and hire a second coach as a birthday gift to myself. So
Nice.
excited about
Awesome.
that. You'll always see a huge return on investment if you invest in yourself.
Totally
I
agree.
believe that. So
Yeah.
be present to me.
Thank you,
Awesome.
ladies. Thank you, ladies, for tonight. And I guess we'll just say goodbye to everybody and we'll see you next month.
See you all.
Yeah, we'll see you in October.